Here's the answer to the multiple choice question about this. Commercial for a breakfast cereal shown during a certain television program. Manufacturer of the cereal wants to estimate the percent of television viewers who watched the program. Manufacturer wants the estimate to have a margin of error of at most 0.02 at a level of 95% confidence. Of the following, which is the smallest sample size that will satisfy the manufacturer's requirements? Margin of error. As you know from the Iseman, is Z star. So in this case, it's been determined for us. Again, memorize this number. 95% confidence, 1.96. You can look it up on your calculator, you can look it up in the table, it's a waste of time. Times the standard deviation of statistic, which by now we know is called standard error. If it's regular standard deviation, we call it standard deviation. If it's the standard deviation of a statistic that comes from a sample, we call it standard error. So, we got to figure out which formula to use. The big square root or the small square root. Well, it goes back to my question. Is it a mean or a proportion problem? Giving you time to read it so you can figure it out. Wants to estimate the percent. It's a proportion problem. So we use this one. Alright. And we want the margin of error to be at most 0.02. At most. At most. So, let's see what we don't know. Two things. Well, that sucks. There's only got to be one thing we don't know. Since we're asked the sample size, we got to know the proportion from somewhere in this problem. But it's not in the problem. If it's not in the problem, we go for the worst case scenario. Ask your calculus friends. The worst case scenario is when p is 0.5. That maximizes the quadratic. So, if you aren't given a proportion and you're asked to estimate, you use 0.5 because it'll never get worse than that. So the problem we're solving is, 0.02 greater than or equal to 1.96 times the square root of 0.5. 1 minus 0.5 is also 0.5 over sample. So, we just got a little algebra to do. Here we go. Let's see. So, we gotta do 0.02 divided by 1.96. Enter. And then, now that that's gone, we gotta square both sides. Up. Up, I said. Back. Squared. You get that. Equals 0.5 times 0.5 is 0.25 over n. So, multiply both sides by n, boom, boom. Looks like we're doing 0.25 divided by 0.1231104. Enter. And I end up with this. And I look at this. It's close to 2,500, but let's answer the question. Of the following, which is the smallest sample size that will satisfy? Well, 1,700 is not going to do it. My sample size has to be at least 2403. We got to pick E.